Welcome to the Behind the Bits podcast. Your host, Scott Curtis, wants to learn everything he can about stand-up comedy and take you along for the ride. Scott and his guests talk serious about comedy in every episode. Behind the Bits will uncover knowledge from different perspectives on subjects such as writing and performing stand-up comedy, as well as booking shows and the comedy life. If you're thinking about becoming a stand-up comic, already in the comic game, or a comedy nerd, Behind the Bits is the show for you. Now, let's get Behind the Bits.
ABTB buddies, I got a good one with Tyson Cox today. Tyson is an Indiana comedian who has his first album coming out here pretty soon. We had a great conversation, and we did talk about a Star Wars bit that he did. And if you check out the show notes, there is a link to a TikTok video of the Star Wars joke that's going to be on the album. It's a really good one. So check this one out. It's a good one. Thanks for listening. I have to say, I've been watching a lot of your clips, and I also watch the way you are putting out content for social media and things like that. And we have a mutual friend in Dan West, and I know that he's a big fan of yours as well. And I'm glad to finally have you on the show.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Good to be here. Yeah, I've known Dan for, coming up on a decade now.
Yeah. And now he's leaving town. He's getting
hitting Atlanta.
Yeah, he's getting out of Dodge. He's going to be closer to me now than he is to anybody in the Kokomo or Indianapolis area. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it'll do him good. I think it'll be a bit of a, not really a shock. I definitely think a benefit going from Kokomo, Indiana to Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah. Yes. It's funny. I went from South Bend to Huntsville, and Huntsville's bigger, but it's a big, small city, but still it's a little bit daunting, especially the driving and stuff like that. It's definitely different. And the weird thing about Huntsville is there's so many transplants from all over the country. You get all the different types of drivers. You get the ones that drive too slow, the ones that are too aggressive. You just get them all, and they're all in 565, and I feel like they're all trying to kill me.
Yeah. Do you ever do the thing where you think you invent a good system where you're like, all right, if all the slow people are on the right, medium speed in the middle, fast on the left, I invented driving.
Yes. Yeah. The way it should be. Yeah.
I do that all the time. I thought I invented the metric system one night. I was like, inches and feet, that's complicated. Make it 10. Everyone does 10s. 10s is 10.
Make everything divisible by 10. That's all you got to do.
I'm like a smart idiot in that aspect. I'm like, I got it.
One of the things I didn't check on before I started talking to you is how many years have you been doing stand-up?
I started, it's hard to say because I didn't open mic once. I know comics that'll be like, I've been doing it for 20 years because one time I did it one time when I was 8. Like I did open mic at a church camp when I was like 14, I think. So that aspect, 19 years. So I've been doing it seriously for 6 years, but I've been tinkering for 8 or 9. Okay. Maybe 10. How old am I? Yeah, about 10 years.
Okay.
Tinkering.
And what brought you to it?
I just loved it. It's not a harrowing story where I was like, I was in the gutter and this is my only salvation. I was just like, this is neat. I like this.
That's great because the lady I talked to before you was going to kill herself.
Oh, yeah. No, my stories are never that interesting.
Yeah.
I have to really search for the interesting part because it's been not bad. It's been a pretty uneventful life in a good way. I've had a life just like anyone, I guess. But.
And did you start when you were in Illinois or did you start in Indiana?
I started in Illinois. Yeah. Actually, I lived in Chicago. I grew up on a farm, and I was like, time to do the reasonable thing and move to the closest, largest city I can. So I moved to Chicago for college, and I dropped out, which is the theme of my life. And I did an open mic up there during Columbia College, had art school, so they did all the artsy stuff. So I did an open mic up there and was like, this is great. Ended up following a girl to Bloomington, Illinois, and then that's when I started to like do open mic comedy like once a month, and twice a month and once a week, and then 3 times a week, and started working at the comedy club. But that was down in Bloomington. Normal in that comedy club is a church for wayward men now.
Ah.
So it's the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I like that. And as far as influences, as far as comedy goes, was there anybody that you emulated early on?
I'll watch old clips, and it's Daniel Tosh.
Okay.
He was really big at the time. He was never my favorite comedian, but I just would listen to it, and I'm like, I sound a lot like Daniel Tosh right now. But like, I loved, even back then, I loved Kyle Kinane. Was fantastic. I was a big fan of him early on. Mike Birbiglia. So I always had a bit more of a, I like the more kind-hearted whimsicalness of their material, because 80s comedy was all like, hey, and I pushed that guy. Women, are they people? Am I right, fellas? No, I don't like, that's never been my jam. So I really enjoyed like how fun and goofy Kyle Kinane's stuff is while still being a dirtbag. He goes from like Uncle Barbecue. You're like, I love that. It's just so fun.
Yeah. He's a grumpy guy that is, you can tell he's harmless.
Oh yeah. So I always like those kind of influences. I think Louis C.K. too, but he was like hard to not be influenced, because when I was starting, he was the biggest comedian on the planet. I could see a little bit of like that little look he would do. Like I'd catch myself doing that. Stuff like that.
And thinking about your first material, it's always the most cringy thing to do. But when you think about your first material, what was that like?
So if we're ignoring the fact that it was a 23-year-old man with a microphone, like, this is my great idea. I don't know people or feelings yet. It was, I'm a very structured person when it comes to this. Like, at word for word, I'll still write, maybe not strictly word for word now, but I'll write, like, I have a document with all my first jokes on it. I have all my material because I write it down on paper, and then that gets put into a Google Doc, and the material was bad. It was not very good. I did not know what a punchline was, but I would say things. I'm a college-age kid doing college-age humor. Ooh, I'm going to talk about fingering. I said the word. You guys like that? It was you guys hear about this poop? I took a... So, a lot of trial and error. That's one thing I like to help other comics, and I've written some writing stuff because I try to help, brings everyone up. And I'll always tell them, they're like, oh, you're a really good comedian. Yeah, I'm not a good writer. I just write so many shitty jokes I eventually run out. Because that's all it is. You just keep writing, and eventually you go, oh, that was good. I like that one.
Yeah.
I have a joke now.
Yeah, and you have a very good presence as far as a stage presence. You've got that dude that lives next door type of a stage presence, so it's comfortable, and it's almost like icing on the cake that you say funny stuff. Do you feel like that presence is something that you started with, or did you develop that?
I think I started with a little bit. Like, people would always say, you get a lot of those like half compliments where like, you're very likable. So that means they didn't think I was funny at all, but like, likable is super important. I think it's harder to teach than writing a joke, but I've always had a bit of that. But I've been made sure to pay attention to it, because like, when I was writing my first 6 years of writing, I always had a slogan. It was just big, dumb, fun. I'm not trying to take on any topics. I'm not trying to solve any problems. I just want it's going to be big, it's going to be dumb, and it's going to just be a fun time. So I think that kind of hand in hand leads into it, where I am working on the persona. It is just me. It's just like what I would like to, it's what I'd like to be. It's what I'd like to present, but I really am just that guy in general. So both, I make sure to focus on it, and I make sure to actually be it in my everyday life.
It seems like everybody that once you're in it for, it seems like the 3-year mark, and it happened for me too, where you look back at everything you've done and it's just absolute shit, and you hate all of it, and you have this epiphany that I need to get better. Did that happen to you?
Every day. It happens I'm still waiting to write a good joke.
Man, you got good jokes.
I know. So I did the album, and the album is from jokes. I think it's like year 3 or 4 to last year or so. So whatever that window would be. And it was because everything before that, I'm like, this is unusable. None of this is good at all. But I think it's that necessary evil of when you're first starting, you need to write everything you can. You write, you perform, you write, you perform. You're so excited. You're just like, and you're not really good yet. You're not really writing like a set. You're just writing jokes, and you're just grabbing at whatever works. And so eventually you've got all these things that you just cobbled together, and you're like, oh, I can do 5, I can do 10, I can do 15, maybe even 20. And then you are working, and you realize how to do things, and you realize how to like make a cohesive set and a story, your pacing and stuff. And you look back and you go, oh shit, this is none of that. Yeah. And so that's where that break comes in, where all of a sudden you're starting to work on big chunks. You know what I mean? You're starting to work on stories. You're starting to have a bit of a journey and actually being a person on stage. So I think that's where that break comes in, is you're learning how to be a person.
Yeah. Did you have any jokes that just keep coming back from your early days that people remember, and for some reason they remember that joke and you absolutely hate it?
No, I'm very unmemorable. So
okay.
No, I have some jokes that people will be like, hey, I really like that joke, my Star Wars joke. I don't get to dust it off too often because it's a pretty nerdy joke, but people will like that one. So luckily I don't have any bad jokes haunting me, I don't think.
Uh-huh.
But I do have some people they'll be like, I love your Star Wars joke. Like, are you going to tell that tonight? And I'm like, I'm in a redneck bar in Kentucky. Probably not, honestly. Yeah. I don't think they'll hear my thoughts on Luke Skywalker being part of the South.
Well, that is... full disclosure, I am not a Star Wars fan. I don't like anything about it. And I saw the first one in 77 in the theater. That's where I said, oh, this sucks. I'm not going to watch anymore. And sure enough, I didn't watch anymore. But that is the best Star Wars joke I have ever heard.
Thank you. I'm going to blush.
Is it on the album?
It's going to be on the album, yeah.
Oh, good. That's because I watched that through several times, and I just thought it was fantastic. The reason why I ask you about jokes is because I've got one. I used to do one about sitting on my balls, and I thought that was like totally original. And ooh. I had no idea how hack it was until I saw like 100,000 other comedians do it in 1960. But when people remember my early sets were there, are friends of mine, they're always like, hey, you still do that sitting on your balls joke? And I'm like, no, never.
Oh, that's great. But it's one of those weird arguments where like hack is only hack because it's worked too much.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. Like, but it's parallel thought. Like with my Star Wars joke, I put it up on TikTok, and because that's what you have to do as a comic now, is be on TikTok.
Yeah.
And podcaster dad. I'm sorry, buddy.
Yeah.
And, I put it on TikTok, and people have no idea that two people can have similar ideas. They have no idea.
Yeah.
People, like 6 or 7 people, like Family Guy did that. I love that was on Family Guy. And it happened with another bit too. It was like Key and Peele. Like, I have not watched any of these things.
Uh-huh.
2 people can have an idea. So, like the sitting on the ball stuff, it's funny. It's hack because it works.
Yeah, but it's still not coming back. So
no, yeah. I think it's okay to put that one to bed.
Yeah, it's definitely in the archives now. So thinking about doing the album, because that's always a big decision, because there's a lot of work to it and you have to do a lot of preparation. Can you tell me first of all, why you decided to do it, and from there, what you had to put in place to get the album done? Get it recorded, I should say.
Yeah, it's a step-by-step. I decided to do it because I had written all these jokes these last 4 years, and I kept writing. I love writing jokes, so I'll keep writing. I kept writing new jokes and new bits, and I would go, oh, I need to work on these, but then I really don't want to disappoint the crowd on the show I'm at, and so I just will be like, oh, I'll get to those, and I'll just keep, and I kept doing the same 30, 45 minutes, kept just doing the same 30, kept doing the same 45, and I was like, I need to get, these jokes are okay, I know these jokes will be so much better, because I'm better now, so I was like, I gotta work on it, and I couldn't bring myself to, I was being a coward. I was copping out by going, oh, I'll just keep doing these good ones. I'll just get the good ones. And I never really pushed myself. So I was like, all right, I got to record an album, because I wasn't having fun doing them. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because there was no point to them. It was like, I'm saying these words to make $100. That's not comedy. That's not fun. And so I was like, I got to do this album. and I just wrote down a goal. I was like, I will have my album recorded by, I think it's actually end of July. So I said I'll have it recorded. I gave myself like 9 months, which I found out is a huge amount of time. And I'm so glad that I didn't have 9 months to toil over it.
Yeah.
Because I was like, all right, worst comes to worst, I have enough equipment, I know enough people, I can do a DIY album. I'll make it happen. I'll do it all on my own. And once it's done, I can shop it around. And I was talking to Nick, who works at Helium, and he goes, oh, why don't you just record it here? And I was like, oh, okay, why don't I just get on Netflix too? And it was like, oh no, the guy that does it, I'll message him, I'll hook you guys up. And I was like, oh shit, really? So he just hooked me up with the Helium Records guys, and they're doing a bunch of albums right now. And it just became very advantageous when the guy gave me the date. It was 3 months, 2.5, 3 months out, which was perfect because I was gone all of January doing the material. So I had that time to really pound out all the jokes, to get some of the air out of it. And if I had 9 months to do that, all the jokes would be so overdone and there'd be no fun, and it would just been hammered out and just bad because they would have been overworked.
Yeah.
But so I had the 3 months, and they recorded it in the upstairs room at Helium, which I love. I'm sure it's super cool to do theaters and stadiums, but I love a room that holds 50 people tight. Like that's mwah. And so they just had it up there, and then they ended up taking care of everything on the back end. Like I emailed the guy today, and he was like, yeah, Final Cut's done this week. And then I just picked July 29th for the album release so I could have a party and have a cool show at Black Circle. Like I was like, hey, can I do a show? And they're like, yeah. So that's how the long and short of it all came about.
When you work with a record company like that, how involved do you have to be, like in the edits and all that?
Luckily, I know enough to have limped it by. Like I could have theoretically done it on my own, but this was super convenient. Like he just sent me, I did 2 shows, and I felt that I nailed it. I was like, first show, got it. I wanted to feel like an evening, not perfect, so there's some in there. But I listened through, and I just told him, like, at the minute markers, I was like, hey, I have some weird dead air here. Can you cut this? And I think I only made 6 little edits that were like, one of them I sipped a drink real weird. And I was like, I just didn't like that. I didn't feel like I added anything. So like real unimportant, but like anal things to be like, hey, get rid of that. But he said it was super easy to edit on that end because it really was only like a few edits of like clip this dead air. One thing, I just checked my notes, and I was like, checking my notes. I don't need that on the album.
Yeah.
So with the editing, that's about it. And he's taking care of all the rest of it.
That's really cool. I've known people that they use a label. I've known people who do DIY, and I know the DIY process there's a lot to it.
Yeah. I did have a buddy that was like, just do DIY and then just give it to your buddy who works at Sirius. I'm like, I don't have a buddy that works at Sirius.
Yeah.
So he's like, oh, everyone's got one. No, this is my buddy. Helium's Records.
Yeah, you got to do that 6 degrees of separation. You can usually find somebody.
Yeah. I don't like to bother people though, which I think really does hold me back from getting booked because I never want to be like, because I've produced shows, and I know as soon as you produce a show, you get 1,000 comedians.
Yeah.
Some people have done 2 open mics, and they're like, hey, when can I close your show out? You're like, no, like I don't. Who are you? So that holds me back. Where I'm like, I don't want to bug nobody.
Yeah. It's funny. I did just a few shows in South Bend at Vegetable Buddies, and I would have people show up at the show and want to go up, and it was a showcase. I'm like, oh, no, this is already scheduled.
Yeah.
These people.
So there's 12 names on the poster. Why do you think we have more room?
Yeah.
That actually hit me on Sunday. I'm like, I don't even run the show. I was like, hey, I'm hosting this show. It's gonna be a fun time. Come out. And somebody goes, is that an open mic?
Yeah.
No.
Not at all. So as far as the material you've got on this album, do you it's always a compendium of your best stuff, and I always like to compare it to like music. Everybody's first album is usually the best stuff that they've done in 10 years. It seems like musicians are doing stuff for 10 years before they put that first album out. And then the second album is the stuff that didn't quite make the first album. And then the third album is just shit because they overthought it, or they didn't think enough about it, or anything like that.
We overpromised. We got to do one every year. We don't have this.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah. In comedy, you do this and you put it in a format that's going to be around forever. Do you feel like you need to write a whole new hour now, or what are your feelings after this gets released?
I want to do the new hour. So like I'm not here to tell anyone else is their business or anything like that. No, comedy and our current culture has a lot of like new gimme, but I want to do the new hour. So I've already worked when the album came out. I still had another 30 minutes of material that was that stuff that I was like working on that I haven't really hammered out yet. So because I'm keeping the Bigfoot bit that's on there, and I'll pull out the Star Wars joke. Other than that, all those other jokes, I'm done. I don't want to do them anymore. I want to see what else I can dig up. So like I like pushing. Like I like the mystery of it. I like the danger of it. And I do feel that like so you're saying like the first albums for musicians is like their best. I feel like, yeah, this is going to be the best that I had at the time. And I think now I've made better friends that I can run material by and help me punch jokes up. I have better shows that I can be on. So I'm not just yelling about wieners in a dive bar to get reaction. So I don't have to like force and build all these like jokes I don't necessarily really want to do, because there's some jokes that I like all the jokes on the album, but I just know that I could do them better, and I know that subject matter wise I don't need to talk about this stuff anymore, because I have some stuff like I'm single, I'm married now, I don't need to do those jokes anymore. So I think as a compendium it is the best what I could do then, but I think the next album I hopefully will be the best what I can do now, and hopefully that'll be better than the first one. I've written my 10-year plan, which really is 5 years and then a lot of empty years. I think it's new car year 10, but but I think the end of the 5th year is record a third album. So it's like basically 2 years between, which feels more sustainable than a new one every year or a new one every 6 months like Carlin did.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you write goals out, like that's interesting because a lot of folks don't. And I'm in business in real life, and I've always written goals for myself. When you write goals like that, how do you hold yourself accountable for reaching those goals?
It varies on what the goals are, but like I only recently started writing them out, and I found it immensely helpful. And I'm not like The Secret, I'm giving the universe the keys through this pen on the paper. Ooh, no, it's I think it's keeping things in your subconscious and keeping things in your forefront of your mind. And I'll write dates down. I'll be like, I have a new album, like my 10-year plan has the year marks on it, so I go, I gotta make sure. And I start making the little plans between where it'll be like, okay, I have to, because I'm going to do Fringe Fest in 2023. I've decided I'm going to do that. And that means I have the hour I want to do, and then just start stepping back. So, all right, by 2023 for Fringe Fest, I need to have this hour honed in. Okay, to have the hour honed in, I need to have it written by this time. Okay, to have it written by this time, I need to have 30 more minutes of this, or I need to work on this. So it's weirdly stepped back, because I'm looking at the thing in the future and just watching it slowly grow. And I know to keep myself from panicking, I need the goals to be like at least growing equally with it.
That makes sense. You mentioned about having a broader amount of friends to bounce things off. And how do you get to the point where you are, first of all, comfortable enough in your act that you can take notes from somebody? And how do you realize that this note is good and it fits with your persona and what you want to bring forth? And how do you sift out the ones that are good and the ones that aren't going to work for you?
trial and I think it's that internal compass a lot of times, which I'll admit's been wrong a lot, because I've had friends be like, hey, this would be a fun tag, and I go, I don't think that's that funny, I don't get it. And then they'll say it like once or twice, I'm like, all right, I'll give it a shot, and I'll do it, and it just hits really hard. I go, oh, okay, all right, and then I'll keep it. And then I'll start to, the more you work with it, the more you start to understand why it's working or why it's not working. And I think taking notes is fine. I know some comics are like, I have to write every single word. If someone helps me at all, the whole thing's dead to me, which I'd rather have a good time, put on a good show, and do well than every single word I wrote be mine. You know what I mean? Like, I'd rather have a good time and a good show, and it's my buddies. If it's usually that. It's usually my friend that gives me advice. A comic that I like gives me some advice, and so I don't feel bad at all using it. If anything, we're both like, he gets to watch it and go, I wrote that, and I've done the same. That might be the thing too. Is like, I've given a ton of thoughts to people that sometimes they get used, sometimes they don't. I love watching a show because it is that little comic ego in me. Like when someone does the punchline I give them and it just hits real hard, I go, oh yeah. Those are my laughs from the one.
Same. Yeah.
But it's just that. It's just trust in your internal compass, trial and error over the years, and then also just trying them out. Because I know when I first started doing comedy, open mics, gold. Oh my God, couldn't imagine not doing everything perfect. No, Mike, I gotta do everything pristine. Oh, sharp. It's not like that at all. Open mics are have fun, be goofy. You actually have a better time, have a better set. And get a better understanding of who you are on stage if you're having a good time up there. So yeah, now I'll just try stuff and go, it works. If not, if it doesn't work, you figure out why. If it does work, you figure out why.
For sure. You mentioned that when you started, you just wrote every single word out. How has that changed? When you have a joke and you've got a premise and you've got something that you think would be a good punch, what do you do? Do you just go up on stage with that and work it out, or do you write it all out still, or what's your process?
Have you heard? Amazon is now hiring for their new site opening soon in New Albany. Be one of the first to take advantage of launching a new career at one of the best workplaces in the world. Being a part of Amazon includes great benefits and competitive pay, plus many opportunities for advancement. So get a new job today and kickstart a new career tomorrow. Learn more about the perks of working at a new Amazon site. Go to amazon.com/start now. Amazon is proud to be an equal opportunity employer.
So I typically if I have an idea, I'll text it to myself, and then I can sit down and write it down. All my notebooks are stickered up and beat up real bad, but they're just full of written out and then set lists. And I'm still very much like, I write it all out, so I know where the joke's going, I know where the dead air's at, and I get rid of things, and then I will do the joke, and I won't hold myself 100% accountable. Like, I'll let myself have wiggle room, be in the room, listen to how the audience is reacting, and I'll let myself be a little bit more fun and goofy with it while knowing where the joke is going, which I think that's helped me a lot, because before it was like, these are the words. Now it's, hey, we got it. Like, I still write it out word for word. I'll go back, I'll listen, and if I have a good ad lib, that's in the joke now, and I write that down, but I don't hold myself strictly accountable every single time for every single word. So it is just playing around. I'm starting to play a bit more. Sure enough. A goofy, fun time.
And that's really important, because at what point, I know in the little that I've done, that I know that when I first got up there, I was very rigid, and I needed to make sure every word came out the way I wrote it, and it keeps you from being in the moment. When did you realize that you weren't in the moment and you needed to get in the moment in order to be a better comic?
It was probably, like, honestly 2 or 3 years ago. Like, it was just because I was working with my buddy on some jokes or whatnot, and we're just talking, and something he said, he was like, "You're not being you up there." And I was like, "What do you mean? These are all my thoughts." He goes, yeah, those are your thoughts. You feel very written, is what he said to me. And then I was like, oh, I didn't know to look for. I didn't know. So then I started, and then it was a very slow, and I'm sure that wasn't even like an epiphany moment. That's just the one that I remember for being the catalyst. But then after that, it was a slow weaning off, because I never brought the full, like, note, everything typed out, but I would have the notebook written out. Then I would have a note card, see if I can find it, like a note card, and I would have just all the jokes in order. But not only that, I would have sub notes for punchlines.
Yeah.
So it would be chunk and then punch, punch, punch.
Yeah.
Joke, punch, punch, punch. Like now it's just, hey, here's the thing to talk about. Go for it. And so that's how I weaned off. But it was like, honestly, only 3 years ago.
Yeah, it does. It's amazing the difference being on stage when you're really in the moment and you're feeding off the energy of the audience and stuff like that versus it just feels like it's almost like doing Zoom comedy or something like that when you're up there trying to just say the words. And it's a really big difference. And the other thing is, I don't know if you experience this or not, it's real, like you said, it's gradual because you find yourself going right back to it because that's your comfort zone is just saying the words. And then you have to really force yourself to get out of that.
Yeah. It makes me feel like hopeful for the future too, because I know I need to slow down when I talk. I've always talked very fast, and it's due to being uncomfortable. I'm an anxious man. So I talk fast so there's no like silence. But it helped me become a better writer to go say these words, get this punchline. But then being a person, I became a better performer. Now I need to do whatever slowing down would be. So I'm glad that it's always hope. There's always growth. You can always get better.
Yeah.
I like that.
What's the difference for you featuring versus headlining?
Oh, about 15 minutes. Honestly, when I first started featuring, I was so scared because it's a new thing, right?
Yeah.
But I quickly realized that featuring is the easiest spot in the world. It is so fun. For the amount of effort to reward, it's a play date. You just get up there, you're like, oh, I'm doing what, 20? Only 20?
Yeah.
Okay. And you get out there, you goof, you're like, oh, 10 minutes is done. I'm just gonna say 4 jokes, then leave. It's the easiest thing. But just then moving to headlining and still, I remember the first time I headlined, my buddy David Brooks, he was there, and it was a bad show. Like, obviously first time headliner, but it was a bad show because there was a snowstorm in the middle, like it was just all these things. So there's 6 people who have no idea who I am. Uh-huh. And at one point during the set, I just look up at David, I go, I'm not having a breakdown. I'm not. And then I moved on. It was unrelated. I was talking about like cats or something, and I'm not having a breakdown. You are. But it gets easier. It gets easier and easier because the more you do it becomes easier. But it's also new challenges like check drop. Uh-huh. You're never really prepared for that, to be having, oh man, I've been up here for 30 minutes. I've done all this stuff. This is good. I got about 15 more to go, and no one's listening. No one's listening to me.
Yeah.
And you have to realize, oh, they're doing math.
Yeah.
They're realizing they bought too many drinks and are now drunk and now poor. But luckily I've picked the brains of comics who've been doing longer, better comics than me, and they're like, oh yeah, they're going to dip out. So just either talk to them or just do some material and just be fine. Be happy, confident with the material, but then you're going to have to ring them all back. And now that's a new thing I have to start working on, which I love. Again, I love the growth. I love the challenge of it all. So I'm still getting better at headlining. I do it more now than I ever have. It's a good sign, but I think that's the main difference is you get really comfortable with how easy it is doing feature work, and then because you're up there for 45 minutes. Extra 15 minutes is you can't just go and punch. You have to like really hit them real hard and then calm them down and then bring them back up, and then it has to be a much more of a interesting journey because you are there for so much more time.
When you're featuring and you feel okay, say you're featuring for somebody that is a totally different type of comedian than you. And just completely opposite, and you got thrown into the featuring act. Do you feel any extra pressure to try to get the audience ready for that type of headliner? Say it's, I don't know, controversial now. Say you're doing it for Ricky Gervais and everybody's pissed off at him now. So what would you do?
If I'm featuring for Ricky Gervais, the people there aren't going to be mad at Ricky. They're going to be, they want to see him. They paid, I don't know, $45 a ticket. I'm going to do my act. I'm going to have a good time with it. I can't, there's nothing I can do to trick an audience. You know what I mean? I'm going to do my jokes about I'm being from a small town. I'm going to do my jokes. I'll talk to the audience. I might do more crowd work if they're a rowdier crowd. It's really, I think it's more on the crowd versus like the act after.
That makes sense.
Because if the headliner is good, the headliner should be fine no matter. The headliner has earned the responsibility to be good at the end of the show. Earned that responsibility. Because I was talking to somebody and they gave me the advice early on. They're like, it doesn't matter if you crush or bomb. It is the headliner's job and responsibility to crush harder than you or dig out of that hole. Like, I'm not trying to bomb. But let's say they just didn't feel me. The headliner should be good enough to come out and just get it right back on track because they're the ones that have they're the headline.
That's who they came to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So they have the experience. So.
Yeah. Your material is very, I want to say, very everyman with the nerdy stuff thrown in there. Do you adjust for any different demographics that you run across at different clubs?
Yeah, it's really, I found club work is usually pretty consistent, where bar shows, those are like, so I was in Tennessee in a real country bar, but I've done black rooms, I've done club work, I've done red rooms. I've auctioned off 3 guns and a flamethrower. Like and I think you just get better from doing those things. And I do tailor material to it. Like I was at a winery last week and they didn't want, I have this long joke about the Shaquille O'Neal, how he used to catch child predators online, which will be on the next album. But it's 100%, it's a true thing. Shaq used to do that. They wouldn't give a shit about that. So I was just being like, hey, who's horny? And they're like, we're all horny. You just got to really tailor, like I've learned to read a room a bit more. And it just, as much as there's these jokes I want to work on, I'll slip those in, but I can't force what I want to do and work on them, and just they can't change me completely either. But that's why I like writing so much. I like having a big arsenal. I like having a lot of things that I can do. Right.
Now I get to talk to a ton of old timers, and being an old timer myself, and everybody says there's no shortcuts as far as comedy is concerned. You got to do your time and you got to get better on your own. Have you found anything that you think would be, if you would have known it when you started, it would have been a shortcut for you to get better quicker?
I think actually understanding that this is work. It's a job. I mean, it's a fun job. I think it's the best job on the planet, but it's still a job. You need to put in constant effort. You need to put in hours every week. You need to keep track of things. You got to have accountability. And I'm still coming into that more and more. I wish I had known how much work it was up top. And I think if I had just known more about the nitty gritty, if they're like, okay, to feature, you need 30 minutes, but that actually means you need to have about 45 minutes to an hour of material. In case they're like, okay, cool, need to have this. I just started, and I was just like, I'm going to do open mics and then be on Comedy Central. That was my that was my goal line. I don't know. But so I wish I had known that it is work. It is a job. It's a fun job, but I wish I had known that. And then also social media following, which is, it was 2009 or 10, so everything was still newer-ish. But I just wish people were like, yeah, be on that, get a following. I think those two things.
Yeah. You're doing pretty well as far as social media is concerned, and putting out good content, and you're getting responses from it. Are you gaining fans from that? How has that changed how many people show up for a show for you?
Right now, it's changed none at all, but I have a strong feeling it will.
Yeah.
Because that was one of the goals I started to work on, is I want to eventually get to a point where I do a show most anywhere and 20 people show up to see me.
Yeah.
I know that's, in my mind, that seems so egotistical and outlandish. But then I remember people sell like 1 million tickets in the Madison Square Garden or however big that. I think I can get 20 people in Kentucky, but it has helped me get more of an online presence, which the bigger your online presence is, the easier it is to get more of an online presence. And the bigger your online presence is, the easier it is to get booked on things, because people go, oh, this guy's got a bunch of followers. Yeah. Maybe 10 will show up, maybe 5 will. So it hasn't yet, but it is in process, if that makes any sense. Because I have 2 channels on like my TikTok. I have my stand-up, my personal one. Then I have a nerd, it's called Nerd News, and both of those are getting a lot of followers now that I'm actually taking time to cultivate it and play to the platform's strength, which is quick cuts and shorter videos and stuff. But I have people that are like, hey, this is great, I really like your stuff, I'm excited to see the album or listen to the album. So it is in process, but I've only been doing it 2 months for one channel, and then I've only given about 3 weeks worth of effort for the other one. So like it's all new, but it's picking up steam rapidly.
And it looks like really rapidly. So whatever you decided to do, you must have done it right.
They always say find your niche, and luckily being a big nerd's a niche.
It definitely is. I wish that I could get into all that nerdy stuff, but it just doesn't work for me. And
here's a secret: everyone's a nerd about something. We're all big nerds. Just some people like superheroes, some people love stand-up comedy, some people like cars and football. I guess I got to find all the Twin Peaks nerds. If I can do that, I'll send you some subreddits. I'm sure they're out there.
So when you're putting this stuff together and doing the TikTok videos and stuff like that, how much effort does it take to do one 30-second video for you?
So it depends. For the stand-up clip, I basically have my album recording, and I'm just releasing it for free, because if you want to buy it, that's great. I'd love it. But if you just want to enjoy it, I'd rather have that. I would rather have it out there. And it takes about 30-second clip for TikTok, which there's like theories out there, which they call them thought interrupters, which is like change of a scene, something moves, a picture changes, you know what I mean? Just to keep people engaged every 2 seconds.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. You thought a laugh every 12 seconds was hard. So it's literally just chopping up videos and zooming them in for no reason and then back out. But I don't want it to look weird, so I pay attention. So about a 30-second clip takes me probably about a half an hour, to be honest, maybe a little bit more. And then the other thing I do has a green screen, so I have to end up like photoshopping. I Photoshop a lot of images. So it's basically monologue jokes, but for nerd stuff. And I have one that was like 18 seconds that took me an hour and 45 minutes just because I wanted to put a glow effect on my eyes. So
okay.
But others I can use a chop, picture, 15 minutes. Like some of them are, it's also just learning the program and getting the shortcuts down.
Okay. I'm gonna steal from you then, because I've done a few TikToks, but my Instagram following is the biggest by far of anything, and it's mostly because I post memes about how shitty my podcast is, and for some reason
whatever works.
Yeah, that works. So now I do reels, and like I think the last reel I did was, I always say I'm somebody else. I said, hi, I'm Ben Shapiro, and I like Behind the Bits, and I'm an asshole, but you don't have to be an asshole to Behind the Bits, and go fuck yourself. So that it was like 15 seconds, and that one did pretty well. And I look at others that I think I put more work into and were better, and they just suck. So I got to get some consistency.
They say consistency is the most important thing. That's all the platforms really want, is consistency.
Yeah.
But I have friends that they've put in like an hour and they get 100 views. But then one of my friends was like, oh yeah, I did this video. I really like this video. I thought it was super funny. I put a lot of work into it. It took me 2 hours to do. I had 50 views. And then there's another video where I'm just talking shit in my car and I post it. And that's 2 million. You're like, it makes no sense.
Yeah.
It makes 0 sense.
Oh, the things you have to do just to get your name out there these days is nuts.
Yeah. Like, I just want to tell jokes, but I've had to learn how to like Photoshop and edit videos and audio, and I'm glad to know more stuff, but man, I would really like it if I could just get in a car.
Yeah. So based on your goal, your 10-year goal, what is your next year going to look like?
This next year is going to, my next year is going to be a lot of writing and performing to get ready for Edinburgh, because I found out you can just do Fringe Fest, which I think is great. But so it's saving money, it's getting the new hour written, which will be a much more cohesive thing. I've already got like the kind of some good legwork on it, so that's and then I also love animation and filmmaking. So I've made some friends that have some equipment, and so I'm going to be finishing I outsourced a joke to get animated, so that's going to be done here, so that's going to be knocked off the list. But then I'm going to start a pilot for a cartoon, and then I'm actually going to write and direct a B horror comedy out in Indianapolis.
Oh, nice.
So it's the first draft of the script the story's done, the first draft is almost done, and then that'll get redone and figured out, rewritten based on accessibility of how many zombie barnyard animals we can get. But I just love being like, and then I have and then I'm gonna get a pilot done for an animated show, and then I might save up and then have someone animate that, as just because I've learned you can just do stuff nowadays. It's completely different from when I was a kid. You can, like, if I write a thing down, I can find somebody that I'll save some money, and I'll have some people go in with me or whatever, but I'll be like, and I'll get it animated, and then I have a 10-minute cartoon. I just have that now. So I'm just excited. I want to see more stuff that I want done to get done. So that's my next year, is it's a lot of getting pieces in places while still getting closer to because the year after this is another album. I want to have that pilot finished written and that film finished filming. So that's 2 years. So this is planting seeds and then sowing.
Right. That's very cool that you're getting into that stuff, because one of the things I notice in everybody that I've interviewed, the people who diversify and get into writing and like animation and putting films together and things like that, it always seems to make everything they do better. So the comedy gets better, and then everything else they do gets better along with it.
Yeah, I think it helps you. The more you do, the more you have to work harder, and then eventually that thing gets done, and so you still have that big work ethic right there, is the important thing. And learning never hurts. The more you learn, it helps in every single other aspect.
Now, I got to ask you something. I've talked to, I don't know how many middle Indiana comedians for the show, and I follow a lot of scenes because I always want to know. I'm always looking for people like you. I'm always looking for the ones that are right there on the edge of putting an album out or putting a special out or something like that. And I'd much rather talk to you than talk to somebody famous who forgot how they got where they're at. And I think it makes the podcast better. But one of the things that I've noticed about Indianapolis is there never seems to be any major drama in the whole middle Indiana scene. And am I right on that? And if I am, how do you guys manage to get along?
Yeah, you're mainly right. I think we had one big dramatic thing about 5 years ago, and that caused us to really get our ducks in a row. And we don't really infighting because it doesn't really solve anything. And we because I was already doing comedy 2 or 3 years by the time 5 years ago in town, and so I remember seeing all the upper people talking to people and be like, hey, we don't do this shit. We're a community. We work together. If you don't work together, that's fine. Just be quiet. Just don't be a shithead. And then that's trickled down, and it's still, hey, we're all special. But I think that's the thing is we address the ego. It's we're all special, but everyone's special. Calm down.
Yeah, I like that.
But people still have their inner tiffs of, I don't like this guy. I'm like, all right, but they don't make it anyone's problem.
And South Bend was really like that too. Very welcoming and very nice to the people that came up. And it's not like that everywhere, and I'm sure you know that. And now you do get to see, because you're out so much, you do get to see new comedians that have been in it like a year or even 6 months or stuff like that. If you recognize somebody that they've got potential, because I'm sorry, I've watched enough open mics that somebody that gets up is just never going to get any better. And then you see these people with a spark, they're still raw, but they still need to do something. What advice would you give somebody that is new to it, but you see some potential in them, and you just, something that would make them get, I always like to say, get better quicker?
It's just do it more often. That's really it. Like, put in the work. Like, what I hate seeing is really talented comedians get up there and then they just crush off the rip, and then they just stop trying. Like, oh, and then you just watch them, like, they came out so strong and then they got a little bit better and then they just coasted. I hate seeing that. If they just push themselves or try different things and they would just keep climbing. It's just work. It's hard. Some of it's not fun, but it's work. So my advice to anyone that wants to get better quicker starting out is video record every set you do. And then if you really want to get better, if you really want to not use extra words, every word you say, hand write it out, and that will make you hate all of the hey, because you're gonna, like, you guys, that's a big popular word in the Midwest. It's like, all right, you guys are like, you will hate the word right. Like, after your hand's gonna hurt, and you're like, why am I saying right? There's no point there, and that will get rid of a lot of things that have no point, that have no reason to be there. So you just don't say them anymore because your hand hurts.
That's funny. You're only the second comedian that I've talked to that it's pretty much transcribing your set. And that was, who was it? It was Liz Mealy. She does the same thing.
Oh, I love Liz.
And she still does that. And you talk about work. You talk about comedy being a job. That is work.
It is, because people will be like, I don't want to record my sets because I hate my voice.
Yeah.
Well, too bad.
Yeah.
There's so much worse than that. Watch yourself on video and then write down everything you say. You're going to hate a lot more. But you get better at it. You get used to it. You're like, oh, that's my voice.
Yeah, and that's something I took from her. And now that you've said it twice, now that I've heard it twice, I'm going to start doing it, because I haven't yet.
Yeah, it's not fun, but it's all in the same vein of maybe not transcribing a set, but after you do a set, listen to every single one.
Yeah.
And think about, my buddy Troy Davis gave me this advice, and it was such simple, good advice. It was, after each set, ask yourself, what did I like about that? And what did I not like about that?
Yeah.
And that's such an easy way to break down how to improve at comedy. I liked that I got a bunch of laughs. Okay. What didn't you like? Well, I didn't like that I didn't get a bunch of laughs. Like, why didn't that happen?
Yeah.
Okay. And then ask yourself the why, and then keep going back.
I tell you, Tyson, it was really great to get to know you better. And I love doing these deep dives and just watching your videos and stuff like that, because you've definitely got a unique persona on stage in being the country guy who's still a big nerd, and it's definitely working. And I'm gonna study your TikTok videos pretty closely, because I need to steal some of those, not the ideas, but some of the production value. I'll say I'm gonna steal some of that from you.
I'm happy to help anyone out too. That's the thing, is I'll tell comics all the time, hit me up. I won't write your joke for you, but I'll help you figure out why it's working, why it's not working. I'll help you. I'll give you the tools.
That's great.
Yeah, let me know if you can help.
And where can people find you on the internet, especially your TikTok and your Instagram?
All of my personal stuff is Tyson Cox Comedy, TysonCoxComedy. I think I spelled that right. Everything is Tyson Cox Comedy, TysonCoxComedy.com, @Gmail. Then I have the nerd, then look up Nerd News. I think it's the Nerd News Network on TikTok. If you like nerdy content. If you like nerdy content, that's been really fun to make.
And that's a great title for it too.
It's a good alliteration.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thanks so much for being on the show. Like I said, I've really enjoyed watching your videos and just knowing that you're one of those Indiana guys. And it just seems like everybody that I talk to from Indiana just really has a good head on their shoulders. And it's really cool to see folks that are centered and very focused on their careers. And I'm really glad I got to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you. This was super fun. Thank you for having me. I love talking comedy, so this is always good that I don't have to bore somebody at a dinner table when I do.
Yeah. Excellent. Thanks a lot, Tyson.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.